So yes, exactly. This was tricky. I kind of didn't know where I'd wanted to start. There's a lot going on, lots of, pieces and textures, colors, well, textures, with the colors, the patterns, all that kind of thing. I knew it would be kind of hard to replicate exactly. And also, something I do regret at this point, I know I'm kind of getting into like the landscaping of it. I used a lot of round walls in rooms, and I regret that. It was a bad decision on my part. I mean, yeah, I guess it's nice to have them, but at a certain point, it's just almost too many round walls in rooms, and then that just means glitches, and yeah, so it's something I have to live with now because it would just be too much to go back. But there were some times I chose not to use a round room. Instead I used just, straight walls and just kind of drew a line. Yeah, exactly like that. But yeah, other than that, it was still fun to try to build. It took a lot of time just because I was trying to get it to where it could, still look like the castle, but not, of course it's a sim, so can only do so much that way. But yeah, so like I said, put up that mountain with the quote-unquote waterfall. That just wasn't going to work the way it is in the picture, but I did put some type of a waterfall at the end, you'll see. But yeah, as for right now, kind of getting all of the parts, looking at the picture, making sure I'm not missing any pieces, since again there's just so many roofs, and I think I managed to get majority of the what do you want to call the layout, like all the parts, at least that you can see from the picture. Where I guess the picture, it's technically two. There's the front castle, and then there's actually that back part, and it's like further set. But I didn't do that. I kind of had to build them right next to each other, right, basically on top of each other. But hopefully, it worked out. It still looks like the picture. But yeah. So the drawbridge, that was it's just a bridge. Not sure how to make it a drawbridge exact, but I did add some pieces at the end from debug that I found just to kind of make it look like they were somewhat connected to the castle itself. So it's something, But yeah, so you see lots of these little pieces, and I would make marks where I knew I wanted to put things or have things so that I wouldn't forget where a fence would go, or a wall, or a roof. So if it looks, it's very much a trust the process, if you can't tell already. But at this point, I'm I feel like I'm getting somewhere. This back left corner, a lot of it, I had to just improvise, because the picture, it's just, I had a hard time understanding much of the picture itself. So it took some time to figure out what I wanted to do, to what extent I was gonna replicate where there looks to be a wall and things like that. But the roofing was actually fun. I enjoyed that part. I feel like it was more fun than doing all these platforms and getting the whole layout itself. So hopefully at this point you're not being scared off as to what this is gonna look like at the very end. But like I said, I'm happy with the way it came out. Those round rooms, they look nice, but it wasn't worth the heartache, I guess. And not being able to go back in and furnish it because of all the glitching. Unfortunately, the glitching is too bad to kind of go into the castle and furnish it if that were to be. So that's unfortunate, but I don't know, I guess I could always just try, but it just wouldn't look that great, and I feel like I'd just get tired and give up. Alright, so I'm kind of working up now, getting to the roof part. Okay, yeah, so put that picture off to the side just so that we can see more about the roofing, more of that process. But as for the build itself, again, at this point I was trying to replicate the picture as much as I could, but I knew that there was only so much I could do regarding the colors. Of course, it had to be purple. Purple is the hardest color, I feel like, to find any type of furnishing or building in that color. So lots of it was just trying to find what worked best. I found lots of gold yellow colors that I liked, but for the purple it was very limited. Okay, so yeah, I go in with the roof, figure out how to get all the adjustments so that I could get the shape of it pretty close. And see, at this point when the roofs are going on, I'm like, okay, yeah, I see it. It's looking good, somewhat close. And yeah, so choosing the colors for the roof. Thankfully, there was one roof that was purple enough and not too obnoxious. That really worked well, and I was pretty happy with that. And I kind of just interchanged the purple and the golden yellow color, just because there's no stripes for roofs and different patterns for them. So that was kind of the best I could do, is just interchange the purple and yellow. And again, closer to this point, I'm figuring out details that I'm wanting to add just to make it look a bit more like a Canterlot. The details of adding little flags on the top as well. I did eventually find a flag from Get Together that I was like, okay, yeah, it's got some purple in it, so don't look too closely. It's obviously not the same, but it's a flag regardless. Also, so at this point, I'm realizing that, well, I knew it would have been hard to have that cliff, the overhang, because the left half is not even on the ground. It's kind of just over the air. And I was like, I don't know how much I could really reflect that in the game. So I kind of, you don't see it yet, but I try to get somewhat of a close, just some type of idea of it being more hanging off the edge of a cliff, but it's kind of different. I'm not sure if I like it, because again, it's gonna have a foundation. So, it was what it was. But again, so I found the columns, set those off to the side that I liked the colors of. I ended up not even going with any of those, but finding this purpley-ish wallpaper that was kind of, the best that would work. Okay, this is where you'll see I start to go into the landscaping again. But see, the foundation, having to put in those stilts was a choice. It doesn't really look great. In my opinion, it just doesn't. But I mean, I was like, it's either like this or just leaving it flat. And I was like, well, I want to put in some type of effort and not just leave it flat. So I kept it. It is what it is. And then the purple colors, I was having a hard time finding what I wanted for the outside, but I wanted, some, what's the word I'm looking for? Some different colors, different shades, just to give it dimension. That's the word I was looking for. But yeah, once I've got the dimension, the colors that I liked, I was like, okay, yeah, I can see how this works. And then adding in the details, some flowers, hanging off the roof or just growing up the side. it felt like it made a big difference in just the way it looks. I really liked finding like the columns that would work, the pillars, because again, there wasn't any pillars in the picture itself, but I wanted it to look, like a castle. Otherwise, it would just look pretty flat in the game. So I think it made it work, with the ceiling, the pillars, the decorations. It kind of helps tie it all together in a way without, it just being too much. Because I also didn't want to put too much, because, obviously it's a cartoon, kind of hard to translate that into a picture without it looking too basic, plain kind of thing. But I did add a telescope, because there is technically one, kind of hard to see it in the picture now, but some type of observatory. So I did want to make sure I added that. Just it's not usable. It's there just for looks. And I feel like for the looks, it's not half bad. But finding the doors and the windows, that wasn't as hard as I thought it was going to be. I actually found a door that was purple. Or purple that's, not too purpley. It worked. And again, I wanted the entrance to be grand to some extent, but again, trying to reflect the picture a little bit to the best of my ability. And I feel like I worked with what I got. But yeah, so then I use lots of doors, windows, and then some archways. I use those just because I feel like they match more or less what the picture is conveying, because there's not very many doors. It's just lots of archways or windows, or that's what I felt like they looked like to me. But yeah, so it didn't take much time at all trying to figure out the windows and doors. It was just it was just a matter of finding where to put them. So again, at this point, the details, it's getting harder, because I'm like, I want to, be inspired by the actual castle, but then these round walls made it difficult to do what I, kind of wanted to, because the windows weren't working well with the round walls, and then it wasn't short walls, it was medium or tall. So it's just, like I said, it was a lot of work to work around, basically. And I was just hoping it was worth it in the end, but it's fine. It is what it is, and I'm proud. I'm proud of it, But yeah, there's a lot going in, on the round walls, I just wasn't having fun at those points. It was a nice way for me to use, build objects that I've never used before. Lots of the pillars, all of those pillars I never use. They're too fancy, and I never make anything that's really extravagant or castle-like. And the doors, with the walls being, not short, I was able to use different, windows and doors anyway. So that was fun, trying out new things. So at this point I was getting close to the basic idea, the colors, but I still was missing the finer details, because the picture, there's lots of patterns and it's fun and lively, and I wanted to do that, but to what extent? What am I gonna do? So there were some wallpapers that I was like, well, it's a choice. But, it's fun. It's all about, something different, doing something fun, the patterns, just something to give it some liveliness, youth, whatever you want to call it. So I did go in with lots of purple wallpapers on the outside. And then there was a checkered wallpaper that I found to put on the top right, which there is that checkered wallpaper in the picture itself. So I'm like, oh good, at least that, you know, matches the picture pretty perfectly. And then I'd be able to kind of go into the landscaping, and hopefully like that would tie in, you know, make it look like what it is, a castle to some extent, even though I had to work with the quote-unquote mountain in the background with the waterfall. I feel like it turned pretty well. I worked with the landscaping the best I could because there was a lot of water, and then like I said, in the picture it's very basic, and so I knew I didn't want to just leave it with no landscaping. So I did go a bit much maybe with the landscaping, but I, you know, wanted to do something because it just looked way too plain. You'll see that I skip lots of the landscaping because again, it's all the same, and I did it over and over again. So yeah, you'll see it here. I use like 3 different flower plants, and then yeah, so like the Lolane flowers, some pink flowers, and then I think some like reeds, what do you call that, you know, near the water, and then putting some rocks near the mountain base. I found later that the rocks helped the waterfall look a bit more realistic in the end, and I was debating putting plants like on the whole mountain, because the mountain itself, it's just, it looks bare, but this mountain just looked really ugly. For lack of a better word, I'm sorry, it did. So I tried to make it look less ugly by putting flowers and bushes, you know, near it, on top of it. I'm hoping it worked. I feel like it looks better than it did before, but either way, it's just still a brown mound in the background. So yeah, that's just my opinion of that. I kept it there though, so hopefully you like it somewhat to some extent. Or you don't have to, it's fine, because I get it either way. But yeah, so we're getting to the end. I'm really, again, happy with the way it came out, but if you have any other ideas as to what I could have done or, you know, tried, let me know, because, I don't know, like I said, it's good, but it just took a lot of time, and I'm hoping that I made the right calls at certain points. But yeah, let me know if you have any questions or, you know, want to help me out later. But yeah, I hope you have a good one. Bye.